beginning, I wanted to talk to you about my trip to Donetsk region, basically to Donetsk, because we did not have time to cover a lot. So this trip, in fact, it was a press tour, a media tour organized by a Russian NGO called Europa Objektiv, or Europa Objektiv. We were a fourth group of foreign journalists who they invited to Donetsk in order to present an alternative to what we hear and read in the Western media, the main narrative of Donetsk being a terrorist region, and you know all of that, so I want to explain the narrative that we are well familiar with. So our trip started in Moscow. We had on Moscow, it was from April 13 to April 17. And in the first day in Moscow, we had a whole day conference with different Russian officials. There was the head of, anyway, we heard people, there was one person who went to Donetsk region several times to do study on the human rights violations, and they published a book. I did not bring the book, I should have, but so then we heard also Halyna Mokrushyna, who is the head of the all-Russian, I believe it's called Society, so there is some sort of a, maybe Russian Society of Patriots Abroad or something like this. And she talked to us about Russia's efforts on the international level on behalf of the civil society to cooperate with Europeans, and how the Russian delegation basically is ignored by the European human rights community. And then we also heard from our colleagues who went to this tour before us, and then we had also an editor of Russia Insider who also went to that media tour. And then, so that was the first day, and the second day, in the night from Monday to Tuesday, we took a plane to Rostov. We spent the night in Rostov, and then we traveled by minibus to, I'll just show you the picture if you, I don't know if you can see it, but Rostov is over here, right?
Rostov-on-Don.
Yeah, Rostov-on-Don. So we moved, then we had a minibus that took us across the Donetsk region. And the first stop we had was in, you don't see it, but it's called Primorka. It's this village on the Sea of Azov coast. This is Primorka village in Niklinovsky district or Niklinovsky rayon, Rostov regions. This is what they call in Russian пункт временного размещения, or I don't know, point of temporary accommodation, I guess I could translate it. It's basically refugee camp. And this camp, as you can see, it was built during this still Soviet times for pioneers, right? So it's still called Pioneer. And they opened last summer in June. They received first refugees from Donetsk and Lugansk in the night from June 5th to June 6th. Because if you might remember, the Ukrainian army started shelling Lugansk by early June. Yes. 2nd of June. Yeah, the 2nd of June precisely. And one of the ladies I talked to, that's why she decided to leave Lugansk, because she was in downtown when the Lugansk regional administration was bombed by Ukrainian planes. So that day she decided she has to leave. So she took her two children and she left.
Huh? Oh, it's not the
yeah. So this was during the first day. So and these are my colleagues that there were 5 or 6 of us on this trip. There was a journalist from Switzerland, then were 2 Italians, and I was traveling also with my Canadian colleague, Roger Ennis. So as you can see, this camp is located on the Azov Sea shore, and we talked to mostly who lived there are women with children, and those are people who live there waiting for.
How many people are there?
Right now, there are around 300 people in that camp. Through that camp went, since it was opened, over 1,500 people went to that camp. Most of them moved on to different cities in Russia. Those who remained because they don't have means to move, or they are stranded because they have small kids or sick grandparents and they cannot leave. Some of them stay because they still hope that peace will return to Lugansk and Donetsk, and they will be able to move back. They keep in touch with their relatives in Donetsk and Lugansk, and this lady who is dressed who is wearing a blue jacket, she is from Lugansk, and she says she talks to her family. And she says that people there are telling her that people, as you well know, people started returning to Donetsk and Lugansk, but she says that she stays for the time being. She prefers staying there because she can help around the camp, and it's very difficult right now in Lugansk because there are no money, no work. So she prefers staying there because she can help others, and she's some sort of a, I don't know how to translate it in English. Starosta. She's a
steward.
She's a steward, yes, in the camp. So I was interviewing her. We constantly called upon, to answer questions, or she's really irreplaceable there.
And she has kids?
Yeah, she has 2 kids, and kids, I believe it's her daughter. I don't remember, but this is a room where kids study. The kids go to the local school. Since when they came in last summer, they had kids were scared, right? They were scared of the sounds of helicopters, and because this is a sea area, there are fishery helicopters flying over the area, right? So when kids would hear the sound of helicopters, they would just run and hide under the ping pong tables. So they asked the Coast Guard to stop flying over the area for a month, so that because they had psychologists working with kids, local kids from the local school came to greet them, so they established very good friendship relations. So kids really adjusted very well to the school, and again they are getting a lot of help from locals. This is just one camp, right? There are 2 camps like this in Niklinovsky district, but there are also people living with relatives or with friends. So this is just one of these camps. And this is this here is he's a local pediatrician who. He's originally from Lugansk. He left Lugansk in 2007, and he's employed there, and he has 2 districts with over 1,300 kids already. But when they opened this, because this camp, the lady who is her name is Svetlana, who is standing on his right, they purchased this camp from the state because they wanted to open a summer resort for kids, and then several days later, somebody from the state authorities called them and said to them, could you host refugees from Ukraine? And they are arriving tomorrow. So they had really very little time to organize everything because the camp was empty. So this lady, Svetlana, she's a business woman. They bought this campus together with her husband, so she moved in, and now she lives there permanently with her daughter, with her dog, and the cat. And basically she runs the camp. She's the administrator of the camp. And Yuri, the doctor, he basically volunteers because he's not paid for coming to the camp, and he comes regularly. And they have a office with a room for manipulators, I don't know, for therapy.
Medical center.
It's
Walking clinic.
Yeah, it's an office and a separate room for all kinds of
treatment.
therapies. So like I said, around 1,500 people moved through this camp because what happens when they come, they apply for refugee status, and they have they do it from through the Ministry of Emergencies. So the people who work in this department, they come to the camp, they bring the documents, so they fill in the forms, and then they receive the time to examine these applications are really short. They try to accommodate people, so once you are granted this temporary refugee status, you can work. You don't, because in Russia, if you are a foreign citizen, you need a permit to work. So once you are granted this status, you can work in Russia. On the top of that, they also work with, they receive the list of jobs that are available throughout Russia. The different regions are looking for different types of workers. So what they do, they try to match people's professions with what is required. So that's how people move on with families, because whoever can, who can work and who is able, they don't stay there, they move on. So this was our first stop, and the Russian state pays for food and for the accommodation. And for the rest, they said that the Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic started paying some sort of one-time allocations. They don't have money to pay pensions, but when they can, they come and they bring some small, like I said, allocations, because they stopped receiving Ukrainian pensions and those social allocations since last year. So they really rely on help from relatives and from people. They also receive humanitarian aid from time to time. For instance, the Russian Red Cross provided them with textbooks at the beginning of the school year. It was a one-time aid. They allocated some money to buy, I guess, uniforms and books. And kids, a bus comes from the local school to take the kids to the school, and then they bring them back for dinner and after the school. So, and again, they have very nice, very good friendship relations with local kids. They really, and you see themselves, it doesn't really feel like a refugee camp. And of course, these are sales because it's by the seashore. So, and this is a picture taken by my colleague. And then we traveled, we crossed the border. I'll just go back to, who is somebody from Donetsk here? Okay, so what's your name?
Alexander.
Alexander. So Alexander maybe will know, I'll just show you where we crossed. So you see where Primorka is? So we crossed the border here at Uspienka crossing. I don't know if you can see it. Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know it's from Rostov. No, to
200 kilometers.
200
Yeah.
kilometers.
Yeah. So we crossed the border. Because we had a guide whose name is Alexander as well, and he's a young guy, a brilliant, Russian guy, 20 years old. He's a member of it's called the Russian Union of Volunteers. So he took us, he showed us everywhere, and he's really well organized. So, and they had somehow connections at the customs, because we didn't have to wait. Because when we went to Donetsk, there was not a big waiting line, but when we were coming back to Rostov, there was a huge lineup of trucks with humanitarian aid and then private cars. So we were really lucky to have that support, because otherwise we would have probably waited long hours to cross the border. And then when we crossed the border, there was a car waiting for us. There were two members of the local self-defense forces. They had, I'll show it later, they had like a jeep with a siren, not a siren, but, huh?
Beacon.
Yeah, with the beacon, and they would, we entered Donetsk like in an emergency. we were laughing with our friends because I took emergency one time in my life, and that was it. But this was really, we would cross the intersections on the red light, so we really, I don't know why they escorted us with such a big pomp, but anyway, we arrived in Donetsk at night, so we spent the night in the hotel, and then the next day we started our program. So this is Donetsk Regional Administration Building. And
Why it has in English? Can you explain? Or you wrote
well,
it?
yeah, I did it. And I
That's
took a
so
picture,
curious.
to see to show all these pavement that they took, off in early March when they had this huge mass protests in front of the Donetsk Regional Administration. And then I just took a couple of pictures to show you the spirit of that it's still there. And you see Russia written on the pillars, and then you also see Bog с нами, which is God is with us, and отступать некуда, Донбасс за нами. There's no way back. Yeah, there is no way, but not back, but we cannot retreat. Donbas is behind us.
Yes.
And this is, these are two, you don't see, but there are two flags. One of the Donetsk People's Republic, in another one, I think it's a Russian flag. So there, and we were accompanied by these two members of the self-defense units and also three deputies of the Novorossiya parliament. They go on with their duties. They do. They meet with the people who elected them. They help them out. They distribute humanitarian aid. They do their normal work. But the government is not working for the time being because of the Minsk agreements. And I had to call one of these deputies and ask them because I couldn't remember why the parliament is is put on hold, and he explained to me that according to this Minsk agreements, Novorossiya cannot exist, right? Because in the text you have only several districts of Donetsk and Lugansk regions, so there is no such thing as Novorossiya parliament. But because they are already elected, and they have been functioning, so they continue doing this, and they took us, they showed us around, and they accompanied us everywhere. This is also a commemorative board inside. When you enter the building, you see this big board with portraits of insurgents who died in the war, who died for the independence of the Donetsk People's Republic. And the same board we've seen when we talked to the head of the regional union of veterans of Berkut. I didn't put his picture in, but you can really see, they really remember all those people, and they really honor their memory. And this is, like I said, these are two flags that I showed you before. This was taken from it was the 10th floor where Boris Litvinov, who was the head of the People's Council of the Donetsk People's Republic, and now he's the head of the Committee on Budget, Finances and Economic Policies. And we had a meeting for an hour and a half with him. And we asked questions about the future they have, the plans that they have for the future, and what they are working on now. And he explained to us that they, I didn't check, but he quoted the document that they prepared. It was some sort of a declaration or a programmatic document concerning the economic, social, and political and policies of the Republic for the future. So what he said to us confirmed already what I was reading in interviews, that they want to build a state which is based on social justice and really those ideals of socialist society. They acknowledge the private property, although not big oligarchic power like they have in Kyiv, but they are in favor of they will allow this private ownership, but not to the extent of having astronomical amounts of money. And you also said that they want to create to build a society in which everybody would flourish and would feel comfortable raising kids, sending them to school. So it really it sounded well, and I would say that they know how to proceed. It just, of course, it's difficult because they are now what they are building now. They are working on building economic relations with other non-recognized republics like South Ossetia or Pridnestrovia. So they are really, they are finding their ways around. So we had a meeting with Mr. Litvino, and you could really see that, that this building is alive, right? Because we saw people, probably local businessmen, dressed at least like businessmen, who came to see him on all kinds of everyday economic problems, how to register an enterprise. You could see that this building was booming with life. And of course, we would see these military guards at the entrance on the first floor, because you can still feel that presence of war in the city. For instance, in downtown, I don't remember the street we were driving on, but you have these big windows of stores. Maybe I tried, but I cannot remember. They are closed, and you see that, you feel that the war is present, but still you can also see that the city is alive, and people are trying to rebuild or build the life that they had before the war. And this is a prototype of republic's currency.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
This is, as you can see, that it says Novorossiya, and then you have the two-head eagle. I don't know to what extent it's still in projects, right? Because they have they opened the first banking. It's not even a banking system. It's more like it's not really a bank in a classical sense, but it's a system. For instance, the financial system through which they can pay pensions for people, or just carry out regular financial operations. And they have a dual currency in Donetsk. They have rubles and they have Ukrainian hryvnias. So it's a mind-boggling operation to buy something, because you pay in rubles and then they give you back. If they don't have enough currency, they will give you back in hryvnias. And you stand there trying to figure out, but they just go like this real fast.
And dollars, no?
No. Well, we had rubles, so and I ended up having hryvnia in my pocket too. So and these are billboards along the central street. It says peace, and maybe my colleagues here would take a в мире процветания. Now we can translate it. Peace and prosperity, thank you, to our land. And then there also poster about elections. We vote for peace. And this is just a picture I took from that minibus that was driving us around the gas station abandoned. Of course, I couldn't take pictures because we didn't really stop along the way, but we've seen these checkpoints with bags filled with sand and a lot of destroyed buildings. But it was more on the outskirts on Donetsk, not really in downtown. And then they took us. I just put the map just to show you where the famous the Donetsk airport, where all the fighting has been going on for months. So the airport is approximately over here, and then Pesky is another heavy fighting area. They took us in Oktyabrski district or October district of Donetsk to show us the destruction that was inflicted by the shelling of the Ukrainian army. And this is the school number 41, which was destroyed, and again 5-store buildings. You have seen probably a lot of those pictures, so that's why I did not take a lot of them, because there is no point. I just took them. And this is a basement where because very few people live in that area, right? Those who in a building like this, on that stair you could have, I don't know, maybe 10 apartments. So now from those 10 apartments, maybe four
on each floor?
Yeah, so 20 apartments per stair. So now you may now maybe have only 5-6 people living in those apartments. And I wanted to play a sound because actually while we were there, you could hear the sound of explosions at a distance, because the airport was like 1-2 kilometers, no, maybe, I don't want to lie, so it was close, really. You can hear the sound of those explosions. And people were saying to us that when it's really, the shelling is heavy, they go down in the basement. This is how the basement looks like. And this is, you can see, Raskладушка behind and there was a, I don't know if yeah, these are locals, as you see, most of them are retired persons, and they were, well, we heard the same stories that we have read in the news, about them. I asked them where they wanted to live, and they said no, they don't want to go. They have children grown up who have their own children, but they don't want to move. They want to stay because the apartments are here, so they are not going anywhere. And for instance, I believe this was this old gentleman who told us the first time when they heard shelling, they didn't even understand what it was. He said that his son came to see him, and he started talking to him, and then said, "Listen, the bombs." And he remembers precisely the day and the time that it happened. It was on, I believe, on May 23rd at 1 p.m. So because I asked him whether he remembered what were his first impressions of war, and he said this is how it started. So they really have, and it's interesting also about this lady with the red kerchief. She's from Western Ukraine, but she came to Donetsk when in the 50s. I'm not sure whether she married or she came to work, and now she lives in Donetsk, and she complained to me that she tried to. She said to me that there was never Ukrainian in Donetsk was never a Ukrainian land. That to me it was not a shock, but I mean, because she said that all these years she doesn't. I tried to speak to her in Ukrainian. She does not speak Ukrainian anymore. She speaks Russian, and she said, she's afraid of speaking because everybody is so angry and upset with Ukraine that they just. But she doesn't want. She stays there as well. And there was another lady who I don't have her picture, but she has family in Severodonetsk.
Oh.
I don't have the map, but Severodonetsk is on the Ukrainian territory. And what this lady does, she moves between Donetsk and Severodonetsk. And because they were so eager to talk to us that you ask them one question and they would talk about everything. And she would say that, she would cross that checkpoint, and she said, they said that the Euromaidan was about fighting corruption. And she gives me an example, because they have this now system in place, so if you have to have a special certificate or some sort of a document to cross between, to go from Ukrainian territory to the DPR. And she says, you give 100 rubles to the driver and you don't need any document. So she says, what's the point of putting in place this highly complicated system? It's just another way of paying money. And then she said, if I had a gun, I would go fighting on DPR side, because it's just, I'm not about to die, so what I'm to do? I might as well, but it just, people who are really fed up with all of this. And this is, I was talking about the banking system. Huh?
Fed up with Euro integration.
Yeah. So they created the first bank that they call the First Republican Bank, and this is the First Republican supermarket. And this is, I'll show you later.
Kindergarten.
Yeah, and this is I didn't know how to translate in English, sanatorny sadik. If somebody can come up with a better translation, be my guest. But this is, these are, they're called sanatorium kindergarten for...
Yes, that's correct. Sanatorium, yes.
Sanatorium kindergarten for tuberculosis affected or kids in Makeyevka, which is, I don't know how far Makeyevka is from Donetsk.
Makeyevka in Donetsk is just like, the borders just like, just close.
Yeah,
It's like Nipin Barkhaven.
Yeah, because as you know, it's a highly populated area, right? So you don't even notice when you drive that you find yourself in another city.
Yeah, Donetsk just like end of Donetsk in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably the
if
most.
Donetsk population was like 1 million, even over.
Yeah.
But Makeyevka, it is not small as well. It is around 500,000.
Yeah, because the Donetsk region, I believe, was the most populated. I mean, the density of the population was the highest in Ukraine. So this is one of one of the deputies took us to this kindergarten, and we talked to this lady who is the director of the kindergarten, and she's really, I was really amazed at this joy of life that she had, and she loves this kindergarten, and she showed us around, and what they use car tires, and they use plastic bottles to decorate because they don't have money. I mean, they have the Republic pays for finally started bringing the food, but they don't have money to buy toys or. So what they do, they recycle. And you see this mishka made from tires, and then you see this palm made of plastic bottles. And then when I was preparing this presentation, I listened to the interview that we had with her, and she was asking one of the deputies who she should ask, because she wanted to take some sand from those sandbags from checkpoints and bring that sand to the kindergarten, to put in those. For kids.
Sandboxes.
Yeah, for sandboxes, and also tires. She wanted some tires to add, to decorate the interior yard of the. And you see again, it's all plastic bottles. So she said, next time you come, bring empty plastic bottles. Need them. And again, this is it was just, and then she was really, and she was so enthusiastic that she showed us even the washrooms, because she said, I'm proud of my kindergarten, how well I entertained and maintained it. So she took me even to the washrooms, and she really showed me around. So it was a very touchy visit. So again, you see these are casks, right, transformed into ladybugs. And this is inside on the second floor. They have a big hall where they give concerts, and it's very tidy and it's very well maintained. And this is, again, she's with a mermaid that they made themselves. And again, you have what that bird is called, a crane. No, it's not a crane. It's ice. Okay. Let's call it ice. Crane. It's a crane.
So where are kids?
Kids were sleeping. You know why? Because it was really funny. The first refugee camp that I showed you, we stopped because we had to fill in the tank. And I was the only woman. in that the whole team, and I bought some candies for the kids from the camp. So next time, guys, being men, they always a little bit behind in their thinking. They decided they want to buy some candies for these kids. So we stopped at that First Republican supermarket, and it took them forever to come out from there. So we arrived late, and kids were already they had the afternoon nap, so we didn't see the kids. But we brought them candies at least. The intentions were there. So, and these are Easter eggs that they painted right after because after the Easter. And they were also working on this ecological newspaper, Gazeta. They were doing all these drawings, and then they were also working on this artwork to dedicate to the 70th anniversary of the Victory Day. It was still a work in progress, but they really were working on a great concert and all kinds of. They were to have an exhibit of different artwork prepared by kids, and kids were sleeping. So we didn't really have the chance to talk to them, but still. So this is the this camp, and then so what? Because I was also said that it would be about this humanitarian aid. I had some money with me, and after we finished the visit, I wanted just give them money and then go away. But they called the whole pedagogical staff of the kindergarten, and they were so moved. So we ended up crying, all of us, and it was really. It was really moving, and my point is that this deputy, I will show you the picture, he explained to me after what they need. They need some really basic stuff, like for instance, they need soap, or they need detergent to wash clothes, because they don't have money to buy, and it's difficult to buy, because obviously all the supplies, most of them come from Russia. Because from the Ukrainian side, what they were explaining to us, the price of goods coming from Ukraine is higher. Why? Because they are asking for bribes at checkpoints from the Ukrainian side, we were told. So what if you have a truck full of, I don't know, let's say salt, the price is, I don't know, let's say 5 hryvnia per box, and they ask like 100,000 hryvnia just to let the truck through. So it automatically raises up the prices. So the supply is not on the level it should be. And then he also explained to us, for instance, the same deputy, he said that he also, because what he does, he distributes humanitarian aid. And he explained that they also have a hospital for kids affected by dermatological diseases. And what they do, they shave the kids' heads every day, right? Because this is skin diseases. And he said that for instance, what they needed, it seems like really nothing, but they don't have it. They need blades. Yeah, they need blades. That old type blades that we used to have, like Niva and this is really something very special. So when humanitarian aid, for instance, comes from Russia, you cannot find blades in those trucks. So he really has to call his friends, his businessmen friends in Russia, and ask them, could you buy I don't know, a box of those blades and ship them in? Or for instance, they need to drink milk. 200 milligrams of milk per day, and those humanitarian convoys, they bring non-perishable food, no vegetables, no fruits, no milk. So what they did, his friends from Krasnodar, they bought the dry milk in powder, and they shipped like several bags of that milk powder so that kids could drink every day. And this is a bomb shelter in Trudovskoye or Trudovskiye, again in Trudovskaya. Chata Trudovskaya. There is a mine in Trudovskaya, and then in Petrovsky district this time. And this is a bomb shelter, and these people have been living in this shelter for several months now. Now, what also they explained to us, that these are really people with they have nowhere to go because they don't have relatives, or they don't have money to rent. Because they also, what happens if your house is destroyed, because the most destruction has taken place in Donetsk outskirts, right? So what people do, some of them rent, those who have money, they rent, I guess, some sort of dwelling in downtown, or they also have these shelters for people in students' residences. So you would have a commandant, chieftain, I guess, in a residence, and he contacts the Department of Emergency of the Republic, and then they let them know what they need, and then they try to really distribute the humanitarian aid among people who really need it. So this is a bomb shelter like this, and I'll just show you. This is where. It's not really. Where is Petrovsky? It's. Yeah, it's over here. It's in this area. Right. Because you see they took us in different, and these are pictures from that shelter. So I'll just show them to you without any comment. And you see, you can really see those posters from the Soviet times, right? Explaining how to behave in case of a bombing. And then you would, I did not include the picture, but there was also, and this is how people lived. They had birds in cage. I mean, birds in that bomb shelter, and cats, and so you could really people live there. And it's not clear, but that day that we visited them, they received this big batch of fresh bread. And these are guys who brought that help. They, these are two young guys from what the youth group called Инициативная молодежь, or active youth, and Патриотические силы Донбасса, or Patriotic Forces of Donbass, who are providing humanitarian aid to poor and disadvantaged residents of Donetsk suburbs mostly. So what they do, how they work, they, for instance, they have
a website.
Yeah, they have a website, and they have 12 people who work permanently, and then they have over 100 volunteers who distribute that aid, and then they leave the numbers they service in these bomb shelters, so that those people can call them and ask them, tell them what they need, and they try to bring to provide them. And he said he's the one guy with the guy with the glasses. He's in you don't see it, but he had an Armenian, or you can see in the car, he had an Armenian flag in it. And I asked him what, because I didn't know that it was an Armenian flag, so he explained to me that he's an Armenian, and a deputy of Novorossiya parliament explained to us that there is a big Armenian diaspora in Donetsk, 50,000-60,000 Armenians living in Donetsk. So they explained to us also that how they do, for instance, they bring people who have jobs, who are employed in Donetsk, for instance, I don't know, an owner of a small company. He will come, he will visit, and he will really see what those people need, and then he comes back, and his employees, what they do, they just, give some money, and then they buy whatever stuff these people need. So the Donetsk people, they are really self-reliant, they are helping themselves any way they can. And like I was saying, they have a website, and then I found also that they have their own YouTube channel. And this I thought would be a great way for those of us or of you who have young grown-ups to maybe to hook up these young people, because they are doing really great job. And for instance, that video that I watched, what they did, they renovated a playground for kids. They painted it. They just using the local their own forces. They really don't give up, and they have, this is a private car of one of these guys, so they take their own cars and they drive around the city, gathering information and then distributing the humanitarian aid. And this is Rinat Bilalov, deputy of the Novorossiya parliament, who is involved in distributing this humanitarian aid. He's in his previous life he had his own he used to do, not he, but he was an owner of a work, of a shop that would make dresses for ball dances. What do you call it? He had his own atelier по пошиву бальних платьев. Here you go. I don't know how to say it in English. So, huh? Yeah. And this is the car that they that was accompanying us. You see the Kadyrov's portrait, and then because the guy who was the driver, he's from Chechnya, yeah. So he came. I don't remember where. I believe he came last summer to join the insurgency forces. And then you have Kazaki, and this is some sort of group photo of our group and journalists and Litvinov, and this lady here is Oksana. She's also one of the deputies of Novorossiya, and she was an owner of a small business too. She had a, I guess I would call it matrimonial agency. So, and then she also had her, I believe, hairdressers saloon. And Alexander Kolesnik, he's a former police officer who is also a deputy of the Novorossiya parliament. And then this Alexander, who a young Russian who is the member of the Russian Union of Volunteers, and and this here is my colleague, Roger. And so so this is I believe this is the end.
So they don't look like terrorists, right?
No, they are not terrorists. And you know, I didn't bring it. See, I was so in it because, like I said, the electricity was cut and I got disorganized. But I wrote an article about it. It was a general article about my tour to Donetsk, and you know, it was really very difficult for me, very, very difficult because A, I'm a Ukrainian, B, I'm a woman, right? And I was the only one there, and I really the school. One of the last pictures that the car behind there was a school which was destroyed, school number 106 of Donetsk. And you see it was written in Ukrainian, Школа номер 106, school number 106 in Donetsk. And you see these Ukrainian signs everywhere, you know, in Ukrainian language. And you see, and then you see that, and I was standing in that schoolyard and my colleagues were walking around picking up remnants of shells, you know, and they are really heavy. And that was the last day of our visit, and I just stood there and I just started crying because, you know, it came down on me that this is the end of, this is the end of Ukraine as I knew it. That was the moment that I understood, you know, there will be no Ukraine anymore as we used to, because this is, you know, after all the damage, after all the suffering, I don't know. I don't see how they could patch it all together, but also there is a hope. I've seen people, you know, who really courageous people, who really try to build something different, and they are doing what they can, and there is no hatred towards Ukraine. You know, there is. I mean, of course there is, but. They didn't say, you know, that they hate Ukrainians, or they hate Ukraine. They hate that regime that is sitting now in Kyiv. So, like I said, it was a difficult trip, but there is also, from what I've seen, they are really determined to create something different, something that they would build and they would live in, and that project is very different from what we see in Kyiv now. that Tatiana Muntian, this Ukrainian lawyer, was using, that Ukraine did not denounce the Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation with Russia that they signed, I believe, in 1993. It still holds, you know, in spite of all this anti-Russian rhetoric coming from official Kyiv. They did not, you know, they did not denounce it. So there is absurd. Of course, it's an absurd situation, but that's what it is.
Thank you.
Okay. If you want to try to help, like I said, let's
Yes, we are ready.